Okay, let's pay attention first before we proceed. Listen to this voice note because there are things we need to basically, clear up. Let's listen to this voice note. It is very, very important before we proceed.
They try to frustrate the decision of the Yorubas. They will send them to Ocean. And I'm telling you, after 4 years, at least not we are liberal, but in the Southwest, after 4 years, Igbos can never be useful and relevant again in the Southeast. Wait and see. After 4 years, at least not we are liberal, but in the Southwest, after 4 years, Igbos can never be useful and relevant again in the Southeast. Wait and see. The plan of APC is that they are going to make alliance of Northwest economic development. The West has the ocean. Can you hear me? Yes. The North has agricultural produce. Yes. So what they are going to do, the government is going to develop all the agricultural and mineral resources in the North. And then they will put primary industries here. And then go and export, finally finish them in Lagos or Southwest and export them and bring back the money and share it between the two regions. Let them bring their oil. This is the plan.
I hope we heard this. As I'm confirming whether we are coming out clear. Okay. We are coming out clear. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to it. Welcome to it. Today we are zooming into the report that came out from the United States about the Christian genocide. We are dealing with Christian genocide today. Christian genocide. What is actually Christian genocide? Christian genocide is basically what Nigeria has been experiencing in the past decades, or in the past decade, to be specifically correct. We have been experiencing this Christian genocide, and we've been also vocal about it. We've been vocal about the genocide against particular people, or against people due to their religious belief or affiliation. So when it comes to this, we're not surprised. We've been talking about the genocide against particular people in Nigeria, and now I believe that the world is able to see today that what we've been saying all these years, they are indeed, they are indeed the truth, because they called us propaganda machine, they called us miscreant, they called Nnamdi Kanu all sort of names when he was actually showing the world how people are being unalived in Nigeria for no justification, without any justification, and for no cause. Like, people are being unalived by a particular group of people who are being sponsored by some of the government officials. And those government officials who are sponsoring these things, we've been actually hearing their names here and there in the media, how they started these organizations, and how they fed them until they can no longer actually stop. Because if you look at it, you see that there are people who are sponsoring them. They cannot, those Boko Haram and the Fulani headsmen, They cannot just be getting guns and guns and bullets from the thin air. There is someone who is sponsoring them. There is no way the government will tell us that they are not aware of who sponsors terrorism in Nigeria. Any government that will tell you that they are not aware of that is not worthy of being a government. They are not worthy of being a first citizen. Because you know why? Government, what makes you government is that your ability to get information, your ability to, fix any situation head on in a way that it will never affect your citizens, and your ability to also be proactive in defending and infiltrating the field of the enemy through any means possible. That's what makes you a government, because you must protect your people at all costs. You are the number one that they have given this authority. This authority was not actually granted by you yourself. It was granted to you by the people. That's why whenever show or talk about government by the people, people might not take him seriously, because he meant what he says, government by the people. And that's why you've seen him almost all over the place trying to advocate for what is right. It doesn't matter whether he is going to be consistent to it, but he has been. But human being can basically change tomorrow. We don't care about it. We care about now, right now. The time that he's still doing great, we give him his flowers. That's exactly what I do. So that the day they will do some mistakes, we call them to order, so that people will not think that we are calling them to order in the line of hatred or jealousy or envious about what they do. No, we do that so that we give them support where it is due. Then when they make mistake, you call them to order. When they become ignorant, then that's when you will know that these people are no longer, worthy of your, following or listening to or believing in. That's how things work. But if you do good, we must praise you. It is not easy to do good. Appreciate the good they do, so that when you are angry about the wrong things they do, it will be justified. This is very important message I must pass. So as I was saying, first of all, we need to look into what exactly drives this, unaliving of Christian or genocidal act against the Christian communities in Nigeria, especially, in the northern Nigeria. What drives that? Similar thing like this happened in 1966. Similar thing like this happened in 1966, before Biafra War started in Nigeria. And it happened in the north, where the northern people isolate particular individuals and they began to massacre them, even to an extent of smashing a fetus from a mother's womb, taking out a fetus and smashing it on the wall. Think about that, ugly scenario. Think about that heinous crime with impunity. Think about it. Those are the things we've seen happened in the past. What happened during that time it was happening? The government in Britain, who is still, the government of protectorate, or how do I say it? Like they never got over the protectorate government that they actually manage in Nigeria. So they decided that they will be the shadow, rulers. That's why British influence many things happening in Nigeria. Britain, they influence many things happening in Nigeria. But the things there is that Their influence, when their influence is basically not, you know, or their the mind or political interest is no longer, you know, followed up, you find out that Britain will remember that there are cries, or US or any other, you know, country will remember there are cries of the people in the past that we can use in order to leverage our interest again by recognizing the cry of the people in the past and trying to use that leverage to recover our influence. They do that. We know that. But in this situation of unaliving of Christians in Nigeria or Christian genocides in Nigeria, it is very, very important that we understand that it hadn't been that the government listened to what Nnamdi Kanu was saying in the past. Though this was how many years ago? I think almost a decade. In fact, more than a decade that Nnamdi Kanu called this government, reminded them that this situation is going to occur. And it is APC government that was called at that time that this situation is going to occur. And we are seeing these things. The only way we can do it is to restructure this country so that every region manage their economy. Then all this issue of particular concern was not going to emerge because you isolated particular, you know, people because of their religious affiliation or cultural beliefs. You isolated them and you are marginalizing them. You brutalize them. You punish them more than you punish others. You always see them as less, you know, citizen in the country, regardless of whichever president that enters the position of leadership. Those APC government, even PDP government, they capitalize on these tactics in order to actually victimize particular group of people. And that's why I made reference of 1966 before Ojukwu, used that, proverbs that say that he who is rejected will not reject themselves. So Ojukwu used that rhetorics because Ojukwu saw what is repeating itself again in 1966. So when Nnamdi Kanu actually was calling the government to be proactive because this kind of things are going to happen and people are going to unalive. People are going to be unalived by these same Fulani terrorists or Fulani, oligarch. It was reported. Government, instead of government to actually, using intelligence to investigate whether or not there is a truth to it, they did not do the due diligence. All they did was that let us actually ignore the message and let actually unalive the messenger. They decided to pick up the messenger, Nnamdi Kanu. They use any possible means to pick up the messenger to make sure they silence the messenger so that this, informations or classified information somehow, will no longer be surfacing in a public domain or will no longer be, to the hearing of the people. They isolated that man. They tortured him, extraordinary rendition him. It was very necessary for the Nigeria government to go to Kenya on, will I say, illegally to pick up an individual who was informative about the plans of enemy of the people, terrorism in Nigeria. They picked him up. He has been in a solitary confinement ever since. Now, this will lead us to understand the real meaning of um, CPC, country of particular concern. What is the real meaning of that word? Because it is very important that we understand it. Because if you are hearing that word and you don't understand it, it is insignificant. Because we know exactly that we hear it, we understand what it is entailing, but we don't fully have the grassroots understanding of the meaning of this law or policies that was made or established by the world power. We're going to now, let's zoom into knowing or understanding exactly what is this. I am going to pull it up so that we read together because I cannot actually read it alone. Now, look at this. Look at this. Let's read this to find out exact meaning. First of all, okay, the prompt I gave to Google is, what does it mean for a country to be designated for particular concern? To be designated to be designated a country of particular concern, CPC, means that the US government has officially identified a nation as engaging in or tolerating systemic, ongoing, and egregious violation of religious freedom. Authority and criteria. Authority, the designation is made by the US Secretary of State under authority delegated by the President as required by the U.S. International Religious Freedom Act of 1998, the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, USCIRF, and the independent government agencies review the global situation and make policy recommendation to the State Department. Criteria: the law defines particular severe violation to include actions such as torture, cruel or inhuman treatment, prolonged detention without charges, forced disappearances, or other flagrant denial of the right to life, liberty, or security of persons based on religion. Consequences. The primary goal of the designation is to pressure the targeted nation to reform its laws and practices regarding religious freedom. The US president is required to take specific action in response, which can include one or more of the following. Diplomatic pressure, heighten diplomatic engagement and public condemnation to highlight the abuses. Sanctions, application of targeted sanction for human rights abuses, which can be economic in nature. Example, prohibition, certain export or requiring licenses for trade. Existing sanction. The president may also determine that existing sanction already in place for human rights violation satisfy the requirement of the designation. Waiver. In some cases, the US president can issue a waiver of sanction in the interest of national security. The designation does not automatically lead to the same of penalties for every country. The response is determined on a case-by-case basis. countries often reject the designation, argue that the US has mischaracterized their domestic situation, or that the violence they face is not or religiously motivated. Now, the most important part of this, what I read, is where they actually, identified torturing an individual and long, detention without trial. So all those things, and another place that we need to understand exactly where this issue is coming from and highlight that path. Let me read this again. Let me read it with different, model. A CPC designated usually comes from a government or international body responsible for promoting religious freedom and protecting human rights. The term is mostly widely used in the context of US State Department Annual International Religious Freedom Report and related policy actions, but similar concepts exist in other religions. Common criteria for designation. Now listen very attentively so that we may understand exactly this important one. Now, common criteria for designation: systematic, ongoing, and egregious violation of religion or religious freedom. State-sponsored or state-tolerated actions against individuals or group based on religion. Policies or practices that result in significant restriction on religious practices, discrimination, violation, or suppression. What triggers the designation process? Monitoring and reporting on religious freedom conditions, formal assessment by the country's government or a designated body, recommendation from human rights organization, foreign ministry, or ambassadors. Policy consideration, weighing national security, diplomacy, and human rights. Consequences and action typically associated with CPC designation: diplomacy or diplomatic pressure, public statement, just to create awareness. So this is very important. I think we have actually understood where this is, but the most important thing, or the important reason why I read it, is the area where it says that government is the one that is actually promoting this issue. That's when US comes in. So this simply means that all the things that we've been saying, that the government is complicit when, or has been complicit whenever issue of terrorism and how to curb terrorism comes up, that the government is always complicit and they are not doing anything about it. That's when what this CPC talks about. It tells you that the government is involved in the act, or government tolerated the act. And now, did you hear what the vice president said? Let's play it again. What the vice president said before they got to the position of leadership, as they plan on going into position of leadership. This was what the vice president uttered with his mouth. And who is he targeting? The people of this particular, religious affiliation. The people that actually, who are mostly affiliated to Christian belief or Christian religion. The Biafran people, the Igbo people, those are the people that they were conspiring against or plotting against. And we saw the result of all these conspiracies that, or all these plans and plotting that leaked to the public domain. It is not as if it is not fact. It is fact. It is not as if it is not happening. It has happened, and we've seen that these things are real. Now let's listen to this guy. This is your vice president, Shetima.
They try to frustrate the decision of the Yorubas. They will send them to Ocean. And I'm telling you, after 4 years, at least not we are liberal, but in the southwest, after 4 years, Igbos can never be useful, relevant again in the southeast. Wait and see.
Igbos can never be relevant again in the
After 4 years,
southeast.
at least not we are liberal, but in the southwest, after 4 years, Igbos can never be useful, relevant again in the southeast. Wait and see. The plan of APC is that they are going to make alliance.
The plan of APC is that they are going to make alliance. The plan of APC. APC is that same government that led you to CPC. That is the same APC. And the same vice president is the one telling you how APC was planning on everything we are seeing happening today. That is the same man telling us the same thing. So let's listen to him. It is not my word, it is the voice of the vice president. All of you actually knows his voice. This is not AI. This was not refuted. And we have seen the things actually revealing itself by what we've seen happening in Lagos. Listen to it.
West economic development. The West has the ocean. Can you hear me?
The West have the ocean.
The North has agricultural produce.
North have agricultural
So what
produce.
they are going to do, the government is going to develop all the agricultural and mineral resources in the North. And then they will put primary industries here. And then go and export, finally finish them in Lagos or Southwest and export them and bring back the money and share it between the two regions. Let them
bring back the money and share it between the two regions. What happened? Buhari made sure, or the impostors administration made sure that they brought Dangote's refinery to the West. So as Dangote's refinery is in the West, they will be refining the oil coming out from Biafra land also. And now they made sure that the sea, that's what he said, that the sea is placed in the West, which is the seaport. The seaports that we know about, it's only in Lagos, that they will make sure it stays there. And then, not only to make sure that it stays there, the North agricultural produce, they will promote agricultural produce by the North and now make sure that they will now marginalize the Igbos to an extent that Igbos will no longer be relevant. So remember, when they talk about the ocean, they're talking about the businesses of the Igbos because they know that the ocean is relevant today because of the importation that the Igbos does mostly in Nigeria from all countries and the different, products. So they are trying to make sure that they target that area and make that area no longer conducive for the Igbos to be able to make business, or otherwise they will make it unaffordable for the Igbos to bring their goods and do all these things because Igbos are perhaps Christians. Because the person talking about this, we've seen terrorists coming out from him, from his place. He harbors terrorists. We've seen it, right? That is the same man that is saying this thing. So the reason why I'm doing this, I want to bring the connections between everything that is happening and how APC government, APC-led organization has led you into a country of a particular concern because of their wickedness and how they tolerated terrorism and aid and abet terrorism that target particular people. So Those are the people who led you to country of particular concern. And some people are coming out. Instead of facing the problem, you are now facing the person who recognized you as a country of particular concern because people are actually being unalived on a daily basis. Mass graves are being dug on a daily basis. And then you are only concerned about the message being transferred or being, the voices of those oppressed and those unalived are heard through activism. You are only concerned about the person who is actually in solidarity with the people who are actually victims of this act of terrorism. Now, if US designate Nigeria as a country of particular concern, that means they understand, they have agreed with us that the government is complicit when the issue of terrorism arises. They will actually have agreed with us that the government aid and abet terrorism in Nigeria. That's the only time this type of things of designation occurs. Now, what are the implications? The implication of it is going to actually affect everyone, regardless of your political, religious, and every affiliation you have or ethnicity. It is going to affect everyone. Wow, because the same government is not going to be, it's not going to care less to stop the killing and the injustices and amend the laws that aid and abet them to go into other people's country, kidnap individuals, torture them, and bring them back to Nigeria and place them in a solitary confinement up until 4 years. Today, we have not heard any conclusive crime that this man committed. Everything we heard are just theories. And those theories that we are hearing, they do not want to admit that those are theories and has no basis in the court of law. They don't want to understand that this man you are trying, you have no jurisdiction in over trying this man because this man said everything he said in Britain, right? Because maybe because he identified himself as a Jewish, he identifies as a Jewish. Maybe that's the reason why they are doing this to him, right? That's the reason why they are doing it to him. Because there has never been a terrorist caught in Nigeria. All the terrorists that the Nigerian military apprehended, even many Nigerian military actually dies in the quest to apprehend those terrorists. You know what happens after apprehending those terrorists, using their lives, as just a leverage to apprehend these terrorists? What happens? Nigeria will eventually release those terrorists and give them money, reintegrate them, telling you that they have repented because they know that these are their people that they recruited and they need them for political catch up, and they need them for your mineral resources to be stolen without you knowing. They need them for illegal mining operation. They need them to take over your land when it is, they are ready. So they cannot do away with them. The reason why we see the military still engage them is because they want us to believe they are doing something. But they are not doing something because they are complicit. They are part and parcels of this ordeal against particular, group of people. And those people mostly came from the East. Most of the most Christian people in Nigeria are the Eastern Nigerians. The most Southeast Nigeria, even South, even Southeast, the Biafra land as it consists. They are the most Christian population in Nigeria. So tell me, who, if there are genocide against Christian, who are those targeted? In Yoruba land, there are, Yoruba people are majority Muslim. In the north, mostly all the northern Nigerians are Muslim. In the east, all of the eastern Nigerians are Christians, Jewish or Judaism. Then few, or maybe few because they are of northern descent, that make up the Islamic communities in the eastern Nigeria or southeastern Nigeria. We know that. So who are those prosecuted? The Biafran people. The war never ended. That's why they cannot give them leadership. They cannot give Biafran people leadership because the Biafran people need to be oppressed. They need to be unalive. They need to be unalived, and they need to be isolated. They need to make them irrelevant, just like your vice president actually said in this video, in this voice note that we listen to. Let them bring their oil. They will make sure they lock up the water, make sure that they control the food. When I said that, when we talked about fish magnet and what unalived fish magnet, it is not about what you are thinking, market crashing and not crashing. It is not about that. What actually took the life of that young man is about things like these, because they want to control the food. They want to promote agriculture only in the north. They don't want to promote it in the east. They want us to be dependent on them to eat. They want us to be dependent on them in order to bring our goods, our importations. They want us to be dependent on them in everything what we have to do. That's why all these things are taking place. That is exactly the reason why. So now, if the US decide to sanction Nigeria, it is going to affect everyone. We heard Femi Fanikayo, they telling US that they are ready, Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, they are ready to face them head on. You know, it is good. It is good, you know. I am not saying that the US are the good people or the good guys. But what I'm saying is that Nigerian leadership, Nigeria led by APC, they are not the good guys. They have been complicit about the killing, ongoing killing or concurrent, genocides or ethnic cleansing that happens in Nigeria. They've been complicit. That is one thing that they have done. And in that regard, how do you want us to come in and say, oh, we know that US is doing this, they are doing that? No, they are doing what they're supposed to do. I don't care about their interest right now. You know why I don't care about their interest? It's because if everything you've done in the past never favored me, why will I need to actually wait for or advocate for anything that will favor you? I cannot advocate for anything that will favor you. This life is that the reason why when two leopards are fighting, one fall for the other one fall for the other one. That is the way life should be. It's not, life shouldn't be about, it's all about the Fulanis, it's all about the Yorubas. Hausas are hidden under the carpet of the Fulanis. They expect the Yorubas to hide Igbos under the carpet of the Yorubas, so that it will be going from from Fulani to Yoruba, Fulani to Yoruba. They call it the north and the west, south, north and south, north and south. That's what they call it. They don't call it what it should be, but they call it North and South. That's what they do. And we are now bearing the brunt of all these attacks of their groomed men in the bush. This is the reason why Nnamdi Kanu created Eastern Security Network. And this Eastern Security Network checkmated these people that are killing Christians in Nigeria. But today, they call Nnamdi Kanu a terrorist and has kept him in a solitary confinement. But the real terrorists are being pardoned. Why would you think that the government of the US will not designate you as a particular country of a particular concern? Whether their interest is beneficial to anyone, it doesn't matter. But the truth is that you are a country of a particular concern, because we see mass burial every day, and we see families actually mourning. They don't have a voice. No one will speak for them. Nnamdi Kanu, who was proactive, saying all these things initially, no one was actually speaking, or no one is actually reminding themselves among these APC leaders that this man said this. This man, the detention against this man could be one of the things that triggers this CPR or CPC. This CPC. Because, like, when we read the meaning of country of a particular concern, what does it mean? They told you things about people being tortured, being imprisoned for long period of time without trial. Because all these things are part of it. They look at these things. They will sanction Nigeria. And I believe that is what is going to happen if people push back the military intervention. Because for the military intervention not to happen, people need to push back, right? If people push back the military intervention, the next thing might be a sanction. And that sanction is going to affect your economy drastically. Everyone is going to feel it. And that is the reason why we say to you, call for a referendum so that we will remove these people who install themselves or who impose themselves against us. We will remove them and we will determine exactly what we want. And when you have a referendum, we are resetting the status quo. We are making everything to go back to the factory reset. That means when people are going to talk about amalgamation, we will actually, represent each other by ourselves, not people who are in Oval Office or people who are in the Chatham House, wherever they will plan on how they are going to make our life to be. We decide by ourselves. Power belongs to the people. Power is for the people and by the people. If you do that, you will remove any influence that is deterring your growth. Because as long as you have these old people, ancestors who were given a promise before the independence that you must keep this thing like this so that everyone get their own share. Or failing to keep this thing like this, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. So if you break that agreement, they are going to do nothing. All you need is to break that chain of those agreements by calling for a referendum that people may decide whether or not we still want to be brethren or we want to go our separate ways. Referendum is not a license to separate ways, but it is for people to decide what they want so that we move on. It is not about what Oyibo man wants. It is about what Black people came out to, together, have a consensus that this is what we want. It's not about what was decided for us that time. This is now. Then we move on, create our foreign policies, and integrate them and make sure that every other things that we are doing is in the interest of the people, not the interest of few people who made arrangement. And then they are recycling them at all given time. They recycle them because those are the weak links that they are going to use. These people, number one, are so greedy. They are greedy dogs. They will never have enough. Secondly, these people, they have nothing, they don't care. It's all about their pockets. They know they can, no one will fix this country as long as the system, the status quo remain. No one can do it. If you heard president telling you that if he do push too much to his boundary, they will kill him. You heard the lady confirmed that the president said to her that if they push too much, they might kill him. So he's not in charge. He's scared. How is he going to govern? The same applicable to anyone who will be placed there or installed there. If they do too much, they might unalive him. That is the system. The status quo, as long as it remains, it will never give you the best. Destroy the status quo or reset the status quo. Let's start afresh. That's why Nnamdi Kanu, first of all, started with let's go back to regionalism. That regionalism is going to make everyone to be dependent and develop their country with the resources that they have. Northern Nigeria have a most important resources. That's why you see all type of terrorists in northern Nigeria, because as Shetima said in his voice record, that they will make sure that they make use of the mineral resources that is coming from the north and the west. They will make sure they share the money amongst themselves. And now they will make sure they control the sea, they control the agriculture, and then Igbos will no longer be relevant, even in the southeast. That's what he said. And that's what they try to do. That's why we are calling for referendum. US government telling Nigeria they are only killing Christians. They are not only killing Christians, they are imprisoning Christians. One of them who speak on behalf of Christians, he is in a solitary confinement in the DSS dungeon in the past 4 years. It was an extraordinary rendition by Nigeria from Kenya. These are the things that they are doing. They are torturing and imprisoning Christians because this is the same man who was advocating for all Christians in Nigeria. And he was advocating for even everyone, including Muslims. Or because he was a Christian. Or because he's a Christian. Or Judaism. They decide to deal with him, drastically more than they deal with the Boko Haram killing Christians. They deal with the man who is advocating for the killing of Christians to stop or for equity to come in. Otherwise, advocating for referendum to stop or curb these attacks, the menace of these attacks. He's still in a solitary confinement. Nnamdi Kanu, every time we are going to court, today we are going to court. That's what they've been doing. Nothing is happening. That will be our campaign. Nnamdi Kanu is in jail because of him being a Christian. Because all the terrorists who are Muslim, who was captured with the lives of the military, they were released because they are Muslim. Hey, go and sin no more. They will be giving their own brothers information in the bush. What is going on? Some of them are integrated into the army. How do you think they will fight terrorism? That is one thing you need to actually ponder about. I have given you exactly the entry level, and you have understood exactly what this means for Nigeria. The designation, what it means for Nigeria. So that is how it is. I think I'm going to leave it here. But most important thing is that Nnamdi Kanu is still in jail because he's a Christian, not because he committed any crime. Because the crime that he was charged that he committed was, if it was a crime, he's supposed to be apprehended in Britain because he was speaking in Britain. And Britain is complicit about it. Like I said initially, British will always push their own agenda or their when they saw that it doesn't favor them. That as it doesn't favor Britain, it doesn't favor the people who Britain is also pushing their agenda against. And now, is there anybody who will sit in a good position to defend the Nigeria or their leadership? No, they rig election. There is no free and fair. There is no free lunch in Nigeria. So how will you, on what ground are you going to stand to defend them? They say that they are capable of defending themselves against the United States military because they are Nigerians. And we understand that madness. We're not saying you are not capable of defending yourself. What we're saying is that it is important that they recognize exactly what is the driver of these things, insecurity. The people that are in power. Nnamdi Kanu, they place in a solitary confinement. It is part of the long detention without justice because he's a Christian.